What's going on, Aquarium addicts? Kyle here, bringing to you a double header. So the video you see on screen is a little preview of the tank that I just set up last Sunday. And today's topic is going to be the first installment of my new series on how to start up your very first aquarium. Before you get out there and start buying supplies and fish and plants and whatnot, the first thing you're going to want to do is come up with some sort of plan. Figure out where in your house or your apartment you want to set up that tank. What size tank is going to work best for that location. You need to figure out if it's going to be freshwater or saltwater. If you want plants, fish, whatnot. You need to have that all in mind before you even get out there and you get your supplies. Next, you're going to have to do your research on the type of tank that you want to set up, because knowledge is key when it comes to this hobby. I've seen so many people get frustrated in the first month or two because they don't know how to do something, or because they didn't have all the information and they do something wrong and it totally turns out to be a disaster, and they just get so upset over it and they just don't want to continue with this hobby. Do as much research as you can to start out with, and I promise you, you'll have more good experiences than bad. The next point I'd like to make is that you need to have patience when it comes to this hobby. This is something that Rachel O'Leary has actually talked about somewhat recently, but it's so true. This hobby is frustrating for those who want instant results, because sometimes, especially if you're going with a low-tech tank, meaning you're not adding in CO2, you're going to have slower growing plants. Especially if you're starting out with this hobby and you get plants like Anubias and Java Fern and Java Moss, they're not going to be fast growing. You're not going to have instant results. If you try something like dwarf hairgrass and you're not using CO2, it's not going to fill in all that quickly. It might not fill in at all. So if you're looking for instant results, honestly, you might as well just get a bunch of plastic plants, because if you're going low tech, it's going to take time. It could take 3 months or 6 months or an entire year for the vision that you had in mind being realized. The last point I'd like to make today is the fact that this hobby is not exactly as cheap as you might think. In fact, it can be very expensive at times, depending on the type of tank you have, depending on the size, and depending on whether it's saltwater versus freshwater. Saltwater fish, saltwater corals, that's all going to be more expensive than freshwater stuff. When it comes to the size of your tank, obviously the bigger your tank is, the more expensive the equipment's going to be, the more expensive the tank's going to be, and the more expensive it'll be for your electricity bill. There are cheaper alternatives, though, to a lot of the things in this hobby. You can build your own tank, you can build your own filtration, you can build your own lighting. These are things that you can actually do on your own, save you a lot of money, and you can customize it however you want. The one person I'd like to point towards is the king of DIY. He has provided so many alternatives to a lot of the things in this hobby, and as we go along in the series, I'm going to be pointing towards him for cheaper alternatives if you're interested in saving money. This is about all I wanted to say. Before I really dove deep into this video series, I wanted to build a nice solid foundation for this series. This is something that I think is really important to talk about before you even really get into the specifics of this hobby, before you set up your first tank. These are some of the things you have to consider. And I wanted to start from the very beginning so that when this series has come to an end, who knows when that'll be? Obviously, I've only just started the series, but I want to be able to let that individual watch from the very beginning all the way to the very end and know exactly what they're doing. Because that's the struggle that I had when I started out with my first actual tank. I had no idea what I was really doing. So I encourage you not only to watch this video series as I go through it, but also ask questions. There are so many resources out there on the internet now in which you can just look up information. There are forums you can go to, Facebook pages that you can go to and ask questions. Feel free to ask questions on any one of these videos. Feel free to ask questions in forums and on Facebook pages, because people in this hobby are not going to make fun of you. They're only going to help you. Thank you guys for watching the first installment of this series. Please stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you can watch the next video as soon as it comes out. I'll be talking about the exact components that you're probably going to need for your generic tank, whether it be salt water or fresh water, depending on the size of the tank. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. It might not have helped a lot of people, but there are going to be a couple of people out there that really needed to watch this video, that needed that information, that needed to be reminded that they have to just do the research and your planning before you even get started, not just with tanks, but with anything you do. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.